You ever see something so wrong, so out there, you almost laugh not because it's funny, but because the world you thought you knew just fell out from under you? That's what it felt like that day, when this black old lady strutted into the crosswalk at Hoover Avenue, owning her path like the city was hers. Caught behind the wheel, he wasn't having it. Not a siren. Not a light, just a white man in blue, leaning to his partner, sneering, and then, for no reason anyone could justify, he hit the gas and barreled straight at her. You know what's wild? He thought that would be the end of her, that maybe the only thing that would happen is some paperwork. What he didn't expect was to set off a firestorm because the woman he knocked down wasn't just anyone. She was a former federal judge, one who'd overseen landmark cases on racial discrimination. Yeah, that happened. The kind of person who made entire states change their laws with just one sentence. That June day, the sun was burning high and mean. Patrol car 371 whipped through Hoover like it was above the law. Not a call to answer, just a man on a power trip. Officer Rhett Kellen, 39, a cop's son, a legacy of the kind of men who always believed the city belonged to them. His file? Spotless. But if you asked anyone who knew him, they'd tell you. This was a man who never should have been handed authority. The light at intersection 14 flickered red. An elderly woman stooped, scarf wound tight around her neck, fabric bag in one hand, walked out into the white lines. Never hesitated, never looked. Brett saw her, had all the time in the world to brake, but didn't. Rolled down his window, spat out something ugly, old and black, and walking like you own the place. You think this is your hood. But she never flinched, never looked his way, just met his gaze, calm, quiet. That set him off. He couldn't stand it. Tires screeched. Rubber screamed. He hit her, sent her flying. The crowd froze. A little kid burst into tears, grandma, and the whole street just kind of stopped breathing. Brett stepped out, Glock drawn, his whole body screaming a warning. Don't mess with me. People wanted to help, but nobody moved. He crouched over her, not to help, not to check if she was breathing, but to rifle through her things. Whispered something cruel about keeping quiet if she wanted to keep her teeth. The whole time, she barely made a sound. It was like she'd lived through so much pain that nothing shocked her anymore. A man took a photo. Someone else tried to film but backed away. The sun kept beating down. Blood leaked from her temple, pooled at the line between right and wrong, between the law and what's beyond it. Brett sat on the curb, still holding his gun, looking not scared, not regretful, just tired, like he couldn't figure out why this old woman wouldn't bow to him. He spat on the street, thought about how no one would care about an old black woman with no ID. But even as he tried to bury the moment, phones came back up, recording again. A video went live. What he'd done didn't just break a body. It broke something in the city belief that, however twisted, the law was at least a line you could see. But here it was, erased by the one who was supposed to keep it. And that old woman, she didn't scream, didn't beg, just whispered, "You have no idea what you just done." Not a threat, not even angry, just truth. He didn't reply, didn't even react, just walked away. The ambulance came late, no hurry. In the ER, she was nobody, no wallet, no phone, no records. The nurse tried to take a photo, but the camera glitched, phone crashed, flashlight died like the system itself couldn't bear to record her. She was moved before anyone noticed. In the hallway, a retired cop saw her face and turned white as a sheet. No way. She's still alive, he muttered and walked away fast. Kellen wrote his report. Woman ran into the street. Did not respond to warning. No ID. Likely homeless. He deleted the body cam, had the techs wipe the street cameras. But there was one he couldn't access, camera 362, a private, federal, for some old maintenance contract. For the first time, Brett felt something unfamiliar, a blank space inside himself, a little lost in a system he thought he controlled. That night, a raw video clip started spreading. The car, the impact, the old woman tossed on a hood, the cop with his gun, unedited, unfiltered, real. A kid scream. Grandma. The video went viral. Who gave him the right became the rallying cry. By sunrise, it was trending one. Nobody knew her name, but everyone saw what happened. Media broke it down. No siren, no brake marks, Cop sped up. A conservative outlet tried to claim she had a federal record, but that article vanished in minutes after a mysterious DC-based legal request. People started to skingif, she's a nobody. Why is the system working so hard to erase her? Somehow, a name started floating, Miss Lorna. Nobody could say who started it. In the ICU, nurses called her that, even though it wasn't written anywhere. A Gulf War vet called her Mother Chief, said she was the reason he'd survived, but swore she was dead years ago. Stories spread she'd once run a special rapid response force, answerable only to Congress. Some said she was the moral core behind half the city's reforms, a ghost in the system who could stop a riot with a look. Her DNA, her prints no match in any database. Someone in forensics tried running her info through an old military database and found a code. LC, Omega Tier Strategic. Full classification. They got a warning. Cease all inquiries. In Philadelphia, a retired journalist remembered her from a Senate hearing in 2001. She's the reason we had bloodless years when war should have broken out. In a school, a little girl drew her from memory, said, "She told me, don't remember my name, remember what I taught you." One by one, fragments of memory surfaced, people she'd helped, lives she'd touched, not as some hero, but just as a presence. An ex-internal affairs investigator played a recording from years ago. Her voice, "My name doesn't matter. If you need to call me Elsie. I represent what's right." That scared more people than any threat could. Online, hackers uncovered a deleted federal file level 9 access. That's a level reserved for the highest of the high, or, in rare cases, someone given authority to maintain foundational order when everything else fails. People realized she wasn't deleted from the system because she didn't matter, but because she mattered too much. At the police academy, officers quietly removed Kellen's name from the wall. His badge was revoked, his work erased from all training material, his presence cut from every record, as if he'd never existed. He wasn't in jail. He wasn't even convicted. But the real punishment? To walk through a city that wouldn't look him in the eye anymore, that flipped the free meals for officers sign over when he walked in, that left his seat empty wherever he went. Meanwhile, a new institute opened in the old courthouse, the Divine Institute of Public Ethics. A black and white photo of Lorna Devine hung by the door, her eyes steady, lips pressed tight. No one teaches justice better than someone who never needed applause. That was the lesson. Justice doesn't roar, it endures. Doesn't need fanfare, just presence. And as for the city, people gathered, candles in hand, in silent lines down hospital hallways, each telling a story of how she'd changed their lives. She'd helped a homeless man remember his name, stood between a teenage couple and hatred, filled out a scholarship form for a young woman. The ones who tried to erase her now found themselves erased. When Lorna finally appeared again at City, counts still no words. Just her presence, everyone understood what justice really looked like. Not punishment, not revenge, but a reckoning. A system forced to look at itself and see what it had become. She sat, silent, gaze unwavering, and the whole chamber couldn't breathe. A boy laid down a picture, captioned, "Justice doesn't need words, just a look." That was it, you know? Some things can't be fixed by apologies or punishment. They need to be remembered, and not in a way that flatters the system, but that burns a lesson into its bones. When Lorna Devine turned her face away from Kellen at the end, refusing even to give him the closure of her forgiveness, that was the last sentence. Sometimes justice is letting someone live with the silence they created. So what do you think? Is it enough to erase a name? Or does real justice demand that we never forget the silence, the faces, the lessons? Drop a comment below. Where's the line between law and what's right? Would you have done different? Justice isn't always about the courtroom. Sometimes it's just about who gets to keep their name and who's left nameless when the lights go out.